I use Linux because then I own my hardware. This is a phone. Don't run Linux. I paid for this phone. It's my phone. I own it. I can rootkit it if I want to and maybe break it. Or I can run the OS intended on it. But for all intent and purposes, I own this phone. The computer I'm using right now, I bought all the hardware for it. I own it. It's mine. I do run Windows and Linux on it, but it's mine. All of the Windows computers I've had through my life, I had never in any circumstance or situation had some fucking weird little smilf or gnome or creature from the depth of hell come up and say, you are not allowed to do this, so therefore we are taking your hardware away from me. I can do the exact same shit on my Windows computer as I can on a computer with Linux on it. If we are going to be honest here, I can play more games on my Windows computer, I can use more peripherals on my Windows computer, and I can run more retro hardware on my Windows computer, or not hardware, hardware and software on my Windows computer than my Linux computer. So technically, I can actually do more on my Windows computer in form of like the things that I can do with the OS, but it's still my hardware. And I started using Linux in the 90s, and people already back then was like, well, Linux make you own your hardware. You own your hardware right now. And I never really bought into that baloney biblababskis, because it makes no fucking sense. Does Windows limit what you can do with your hardware? No, it don't. It may limit who you can install beside Linux, or sorry, Windows. So if you were like dual booting and you're not doing it the right way, yes, Windows is a limitation. It's like, well, we only want to be the only one on this specific hardware, but if you're a really fucking smart nerd, you know how to dual boot without that being an issue. You basically just install Linux on a separate hard drive and install the bootloader on that separate hard drive, and then you select what hard drive to boot from within the BIOS. Bob's your uncle's solution found. No fucking issue. But I can do it if I want to. I can uninstall Windows and install a random fucking piece OS I found on the internet. Microsoft's minions are not coming and janking my little testicles and yelling, no, and milking me for all my Microsoft semen. It's not going to happen. I never understood it. How do I have more ownership over my hardware running Linux or any other operating system? It's my hardware. Does some of the components of the hardware works better with one operating system than another? Yeah. So why does it do that? Because it's the most popular operating system. That's the reason for it. That's the main reason. Anything else that people are trying to say to you about owning your hardware and running open source and Linux and blah blah blah, it's the biggest lie has been told in IT for decades, if you ask me. Let's say Windows owned my hardware or Microsoft owned my hardware. That meant that I actually are just lending it. That also means that they have to have it back at some point. I have never bought a piece of hardware where some minions guy after 2 or 3 or 4 years or saw me installing Windows or Linux or OS2 or BOS or Haiku on my system. I would not get like a knock and someone would be like, Kent, I see you have acquired this computer with Windows on it, and yes sir, we have now acknowledged or recognized that you are not using Windows anymore correctly. We now are entitled, according to the licenses and agreements that you signed, we are required to take back the hardware. It's not yours anymore, but I paid a lot of money for it. Yep, that's too bad. It's our hardware. Do you own it in form of freedom? No, I can do whatever I want on Windows, whatever I want. Can I mess with the kernel? Yeah, if I know how to do it. I just can't see the source code. I can't compile the Windows kernel, but I can still mess with it. I can still go into the registry and I can still use config files to mess with all kind of subsystems in Windows. I just can't see the code. I can't copy the code. But that's not owning your hardware. That's not having freedom. That's having development choice. That's having development opportunities, if you can do that. The fact of the matter is that what 99% of Linux users are doing on Linux, they can do on Windows exactly to the same degree, sometimes even fucking faster and better, depending on what you're doing. Because most people that are using Linux are not compiling the kernel. They are not looking at source code. They are not doing these really, really development specific things because they are not developers. They don't know how source code looks like for the most part, or what to do with it when they get their crappy ass hands on it. But telling someone that they don't own the hardware, I can kinda, to some degree, agree if we are talking mobile phones, because mobile phones are really tethered to the OS that they are sold with. So if you're buying a Samsung phone, you can use, like, let's say Huawei's OS on it, Android version on it, or you can get Nokia's Android version on it, but it's a really big hassle, and some things work and some things don't, and blah blah blah. But you can kind of do it, and there are people that have installed Linux, or so not Linux, but Android on iOS devices and stuff like that. So tablets and mobile phones, I will kinda, to some degree, could see your point that, well, you don't really own your hardware because of the software running on it, but a traditional laptop, desktop, and stuff like that, to me, that's bullshit. It's like, makes no sense. I have not given away freedoms on my computer for using Windows on it, because I can choose to then install Linux on it if I want to. I can choose to not using Microsoft services. Will Microsoft or will Windows bitch and moan about it's being the best browser? Yeah, of course it will. You know, it's marketing. It's what people do that have a powerful hold in an industry. They want you to use their products. Canonical do the fucking same thing. Red Hat do the same thing. Go on their website. They don't do it in the OS. They do it on their website. Every company that's in any fucking business to make money promote their own services. Why you should use Ubuntu's Docker container technology over Red Hat's Docker container technology, and then you have white papers and black pages and yellow pages and what the fuck, explaining why you should use their technology over anyone else. Why nobody bitching and moaning about that? Because Linux users are massive hypocrites, if you ask me. But anyway, it has never made sense to me, and I'm tired of that being an argument. There are plenty of valid, good arguments you can use why you should use Linux over Windows. Saying that, oh, you're owning your hardware right now because you can do everything with your hardware, there's no limitation. There's no limitation with fucking Linux or Windows. I can find an open source driver for whatever hardware I have that have open source drivers and use that, mess with that on the Windows, just like on the Linux. Or I can use the proprietary driver to get my NVIDIA card to work on the Linux. So you're not owning your NVIDIA card right now because you're using a proprietary lockdown driver for your fucking NVIDIA card. So will that mean that all Linux users using NVIDIA cards are in the same situation as all Windows users because they can't see the source code? They don't have freedom. Confused and angry and tired and frustrated, all of the fucking things above. The amount of fucking cluelessness coming out of people's mouths as arguments why one thing is better than the other, or why you should use one thing over another. It's the weakest argument. And here's the thing, when I hear someone say, oh, you own your hardware for using Linux, the second I hear that, I automatically disregard everything they say because they have no knowledge about what they're talking about. Because for someone that don't understand Linux and operating systems and development and IT in general will say that. That's the only one that will say that I own my hardware because I run Linux. Again, I will agree that you pay the Microsoft tax, by buying a laptop or hardware, or let's say laptop or computer, because you pay a little bit of money going towards the license. I will 100,000% agree with that, and that's a amazing good argument, is that, well, if you don't buy a Windows computer or you build your computer yourself, you don't install Linux on, you don't have to pay X amount of money to Microsoft. That's 1,000 times better fucking argument than you owning your hardware. But then when I want to use Windows, I just use an old Windows Pro key that I got from a Windows 7 machine that I've been using for fucking years now, so I don't have to pay for Windows, or I paid $20 for an OEM key and use Windows that way. Microsoft don't give a flying fucking hell, okay? Nobody gives a fucking hell that you're doing that. Most fucking tech channels do it like that, okay? This is not like something groundbreaking fucking hack I'm telling you guys about right now. People need to fucking be smarter. I don't know how to say this more fucking nicely. For all of the good arguments for using Linux, like, you have more access to the behind the scene workings elements of your operating system. You have more access to things you can learn coding from. Open source, one of the biggest components for open source software is learning. it makes it so fucking great for learning, because you can see how other people develop and mess with code, because you can see it. That's one of the biggest advantages with open source, in my opinion. Why not use that argument instead of, oh, you own your hardware? I'm still waiting for a fucking Windows sticker to emerge on my fucking computer over here that says like, only Windows, nothing else. And if you're installing anything else, the big bad boys are going to take it out of my door. Makes no fucking sense. See you all later. Bye bye.